Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the Heritage Association of South Africa and the Magaliesburg Association for Culture and Heritage for the opportunity to share with you some personal thoughts of the history and development of the German settlement Kroondal. It is difficult to summarize more than 150 years of history in half an hour, since there is quite a lot on record and it is very diverse. I myself am a German-speaking South African and an ordinary farmer of the area. More specific, the Olifantsnek Dam, about 18 kilometers from Kroondal, producing cash crops, sunflowers, stud breeding, pecan nuts, game, fodder, and citrus on another farm, and also obviously taking part in the daily happenings of the Kroondal community. Kroondal is situated about 8 kilometers southeast of Rustenburg and is nowadays partially part of the well-known world platinum production and other precious metals industry. Kroondal is a largely German community with evangelical Lutheran background, originated from missionaries. It was in the 1950s when men were commissioned for service in Africa, and some were settled in South Africa. As we heard, Pastor Louis Harms initiated a private ship called the Kandatsa to take some missionaries and skilled tradesmen into the Zululand to assist with the establishment of a series of self-sufficient communities such as Hermannsburg in KwaZulu-Natal. Colonialism became a factor, but the Germans stayed neutral and were confronted with a question: how to survive with their language, culture, and tradition. The answer to this question lies in the rise of missionaries and mission societies, particularly those conducted by the Lutherans. The president at the time of the Zuid-Afrikaanse Republic requested then the Hermannsburg missionaries mission to expand their Christian work towards Bechuanaland and the Western Transvaal. Increasing numbers made communal living of the type practiced in Europe impractical, particularly after the arrival of wives and children. The incentives of private goals like farming, as well as their separate origins from either Berlin or Hermannsburg in Germany, resulted in different interests, and this caused separation into the Free Church and the Hermannsburg Church and Synod. Missionaries were frequently requested to fill the task of a pastor, either in a full-time capacity or in addition to their mission duties. The tendency of the commissioned missionaries to marry within their own circles and the commitment to German culture and the Lutheran Church ensured that their religion, the religious and cultural heritage was passed on to their children, even when land shortages led to migration and new Lutheran congregations were established closer at hand. The schooling of the children became a major problem. Hermannsburg and Natal was too far to travel by ox wagon to get the children back home. In 1876, these schooling problems led to the establishment, as we heard, of their own school and hostel, Morgensonne, south of Phokeng. Even President Paul Kruger and others from the area sent their children to this school. During the Anglo-Boer War and after the Rinderpest, the school had to be closed down and the buildings were ransacked. But the parents and the missionaries did not give up and decided to make the existing Kroondal the new school center. The farm Kroondal, about also again 3,000 hectares, was owned originally by Johan van Helstingen, a descendant of the van Helstingens out of the Cape, with a farm called Kroonendal. From there, the name Kroondal, or the Kroondal. P.J. Rickert, and others became joint owners until the missionary Ferdinand Zimmermann became sole owner in 1875 to work amongst the black and colored communities, many of them from the Oorlams community who came from the trekking Boers. He had no success and was compelled to get rid of the farm again. This is where missionary Christian Müller from Ramakokostad, Palane, in the malaria-infested bushveld negotiated a deal for the chief of the Palane, Joseph Mukoka, and bought the farm for £2,000. However, the income produced from the farm with part of the tribe as input was not sufficient to pay the bond, and Miller also had to look for a new buyer for the farm. At this stage of the missionaries and who had sons who had to find jobs. In 1889, the farm was bought by 8 missionaries, Müller, Yard, Jacobs, Bakkerberg, Venold, Penson, and others, as a communal venture, and divided it into 11 farmsteads. Every piece consisted about 6 morgen, irrigatable land, and the balance was communal grazing. Property for the church and the school was set aside. The first year were tough. Capital was scarce to rebuild irrigation systems, farm buildings, and everything needed to get started. Everything was done in a communal basis, all helping each other. One of the biggest problems was to find suitable markets for the products, like maize, wheat, oats, or even tobacco. It was not easy to take crops from Kroondal to Pretoria or to Johannesburg by ox-wagon. Droughts, hailstorm, locusts, and the rinderpest and other problems were some of the catastrophes which they had to endure. But hard labor, confidence, and belief brought success. In 1895, they reached the point where they were able to think about the building school, but they were advised to build a church, a small church. About 40,000 bricks were handmade, and other building material was put together, and they built the little church, still standing. It was declared a national monument and is today mainly used as a library, a collection point of historical goods and special occasions. The building process was interrupted by the Jameson Raiders, but the congregation was established and constituted in August 1896. A new era has started. The German land surveyor, Muhl, contracted by the government, measured out more farmland for expansion, with more water out of the Hex River. In 1897, the small classroom school was built next to the old church. Just when everything seemed to be going well, the Anglo-Boer started. In their absence, because of the war, their homesteads were ransacked, some burnt down, cattle stolen, and cultivated land went wild again. But they started again by specific inputs like housewives, communal baking bread, an old post business offer with the old Model T, at the time those stamps which were used, the tobaccos which were picked, and maize threshing with steam engines. The Deutsche Schule Kroondal, a private school society, was founded, and additional school building and hostel were erected for a high standard of education, teaching German and the Lutheran doctrine as additional subjects. The hostel was used mainly for children whose parents or missionaries stayed far away, but nowadays used as a guest house. The Lutheran Church and the school society have always been the center of German community. not only for the Kroondalers, but also for the German families and friends around Rustenburg. Today, a large percentage of community members are Afrikaans-speaking. Members of the congregation and community were over the years and are even today making big sacrifices to keep the two entities going. Subsidies by the government were and are absolutely too little. Noticeable from the Kroondalers is that a standstill means going backwards. Large private contributions were made. The first community hall built in 1937, and then the new hall for all interested community activities. The new church was erected in 1962 with a well-looked after cemetery. A new house for the pastor was built, and then a creche and preschool for the children, preparing the absolute future from our children. An outreach into the adjacent community was the building of 2 Tswana schools for more than 300 children. With political changes, the Kroondal Farm School and the church were unfortunately recently vandalized and destroyed. But the Tirelong School on the Mines is still going on. Other projects where urgent help is needed are mainly organized by women groups of the Kroondal congregation. Examples are the soup kitchen, different safe houses for the poor and needy, like the Children's Lighthouse, the Morester, Spesbona, and others. Support with food, Bible study, Bible distribution, and education is continuously ongoing. There's a huge demand for help and support in different communities and situations. The Women's League also does fundraising projects like baking Christmas cookies, as well as the catering for weddings and other functions in the community hall, obviously with a good kitchen. A big achievement was the erection of an old age home and a pensioner village in 1990. To provide funds for all these buildings and recreation facilities, different methods for fundraising were and are still used. The annual Kroondal Bazaar, held in June, is a valuable money spinner. In communal effort, about 20 head of cattle, nowadays 3,500 kg of pure red meat, and up to 60 pigs are slaughtered and processed into biltong, drywars, sausages, ham, and other specialty products. The Bazaar Day is a joyful gathering for everybody to enjoy the day and the community. The Kroondal Carnival was established in the emptied chili sheds of the Oud Barons, nowadays the Spa, now in Kroondal Spa, and became very popular for the up to 2,000 guests bringing in money for the school and old age home. When Mr. Victor Hesse stopped farming, he offered his lands to be cultivated for communal purposes. Kroondal farmers plowed and planted these lands for the benefit of the school. It is always a big event when the school children see how the combines harvest the crop. The building of the Olifantsnek Dam in 1927 was of utmost significance for the Kroondal farmers. With the water out of the dam running 4 kilometers in open furrows, the larger farmlands were irrigated for bigger productivity. Farming is becoming increasingly difficult, and only 6 farmers survived as viable units. Will they be able to survive against the big mining industries and changing in the economy and environment? Fortunately, today the community consists of many families which are not farmers. To celebrate the German culture and tradition, the annual German Day was held on Heritage Day, with volksdance, sport, music, cultural speeches, and everything for the community. Our future, the youth, is well looked after and supported by supplying the means for several recreational activities, like the tennis club, the swimming bath, shooting range, cricket, cycling, and football, to name a few. During Sunday services, the children attend their own children's church. Of course, the businesses in Kroondal were and are still an important part of Kroondal, bringing along prosperity and more members to take part in the communal activities, like the Ottoman Mill, the MKTV, the Tobacco Corporation, which was initiated by George Ottoman, the Citrus Packhouse, the Alkberens Spa Shop, with different significant products like the old Namota wool and chili production, post office, the blacksmith and an engineering shop, the Kroondal Garage, Moels Motors, and all the other German companies like Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, Siemens, Deutz, Bosch, and Bayer, to name a few. Many descendants of Kroondal were and are employed in the business of offices in Rustenburg and on the mines in the area. A picture of the first mine dump of Merensky. The results of the high education in the Kroondal private school can be seen countrywide and also internationally, where Kroondalers became well known as successful in all professions: professors, teachers, lawyers, tradesmen, managers, engineers, directors, doctors, etc. As mentioned before, one of the main characteristics of Kroondal is the church and the activities around it. Music is playing a big role in the whole spectrum of activities. The unique organ, with its 916 pipes, offers not only support in the weekly services, but plays also an integral part of concerts, festivals, weddings, and funerals. The church choir and the general singing together with the brass band is still active and plays a big part of many functions, whether it's sacred music, entertaining music, or just for the love of it. Music festivals need quite a lot of practice and are offered on a regular basis, and they give more satisfaction to everybody who takes part in it, because education in music and with all other instruments is a form of communication. On this note, I want to invite everybody to experience the little village of Kroondal with all its features and its inspiring history. To summarize the Kroondal's distinctive features: their disposition and character, conviction, tradition and discipline, their outreach and togetherness, their language and heritage, their practical approach and diligence, their team effort and business principles, but above all, their faith. Everything depends on God's blessing. I thank you.